10 NBA teams that always seem to disappoint us. I'm sure we can all agree that entering a new NBA season is very exciting. We get to see all the players who are wearing a different jersey on their new teams. We get to see all of our favorite analysts back on our TV screens. And we will begin to make predictions on which teams are going to dominate this year and which teams will improve from last year. But unfortunately, more often than not, those predictions never really pan out, and we're stuck feeling stupid when the Warriors win once again. So in this video, I will be talking about the teams that we always think will achieve big things entering the season or playoffs, but then it never really materializes. Also, I just want to give a quick disclaimer before we start. Now, I am very aware that there is only one championship trophy, and 29 teams will fail to hoist the trophy. But I'm going to be talking about each team in terms of expectations, because each one of these teams may have a different standard than the other. Alright, so let's jump right into the video. Now remember, this list is in no particular order. The Toronto Raptors. The Raptors have actually been pretty good the last few years, always winning around 50 plus games, which could be considered a successful season, but they always seem to fail to go farther than that. Every year, many people believe that it's finally their turn to make it out of the Eastern Conference and make a finals appearance. But the only thing that always prevents that from happening, other than LeBron James, is the fact that they have a hard time performing in the postseason like they do in the regular season. Kyle Lowry and DeMar DeRozan always seem to have horrible games in the playoffs and never really look like their true selves. But maybe the fact that LeBron is gone and they now have Kawhi Leonard, things might be different this year. The Houston Rockets. Now many of you are probably saying right now, why are they on this list? They made it to Game 7 of the Western Conference Finals. Well, yeah, that is a pretty amazing achievement, but when you have the MVP on your team, anything other than winning a championship is a complete failure. In the last 2 seasons, we expected the Rockets to be the team to finally knock off the Golden State Warriors, but we all know what Mike D'Antoni teams eventually do. They choke. They begin to crumble when the pressure is on and seem to deviate away from their style of play that helped them get there and go straight to iso ball, mainly with the ball in James Harden's hands, and more often than not, that's just not going to get it done. Now I know if Chris Paul wasn't injured for game 6 or 7, then they would probably be the world champs right now, but it still doesn't take away from the fact that it was just another disappointing season for them. The Portland Trail Blazers. Okay, this one was a little painful to put on this list because the Blazers are my team, and as a fan, I have definitely experienced disappointment during the playoffs. You see, Portland is never really hyped up as a potential team to keep an eye on before the season starts, but it's actually after the All-Star break when the Trailblazers make a very impressive run towards the playoffs and usually go on a decent winning streak. Only then, people start to notice them and begin to show them some respect. But unfortunately, they don't seem to make any noise in the playoffs, and eventually ends by getting swept in the first round, mainly because all they really have is Damian Lillard and CJ McCollum, and when their shots aren't falling, you know it's over because their role players are almost non-existent when you need them the most. The Milwaukee Bucks. Heading into the last couple of seasons, we anticipated that the Bucks will go to the next level and be a legit contender in the Eastern Conference, which they actually are legit contenders during the season, but can never really get past the teams in the playoffs that they should have easily knocked off. Like for example, in the 2017 playoffs, they had the Raptors on the ropes, up 2-1 in the series, but will go on to lose 3 straight games for a first round exit. And the 2018 playoffs was more of the same, but this time they lost to a Celtics team that everyone expected the Bucks to have no problem with, especially without Kyrie Irving or Gordon Hayward. But yet again, the stage was too big and would go home earlier than predicted. The Los Angeles Clippers. Even though the Clippers teams that had Chris Paul and Blake Griffin are no longer together, I still feel like they belong on this list because they were a group of guys that definitely should have accomplished more during their Lob City days. You see, ever since they acquired Chris Paul in 2011 to team up with then rising star Blake Griffin, the expectations surrounding the Clippers were very high, and the spotlight was something that organization was not used to considering their below average success in the early eras of the franchise. For many years, things were looking bright for that team. They had a lot of talent and were certainly a lot of fun to watch, but they had no luck when it came to the playoffs, whether it was injuries that cut their seasons short or the multiple times that they blew leads when they were up in a series. They never seemed to catch a break, and things would end in disaster as they all went their separate ways. The Oklahoma City Thunder. After Kevin Durant's rookie season with the Seattle Supersonics, everyone realized that he was going to emerge as one of the best in the world someday. And that's exactly what happened through his years with the Oklahoma City Thunder. He would battle alongside one of the best sidekicks you can ever ask for in Russell Westbrook. So just looking at the talent those two had alone certainly raised the standards to championship or bust. Even though they did make a finals appearance in 2012 with James Harden and company, they straight up got crushed by Miami, mostly because they were just too young and lacked experience. But there would be no excuses moving forward after Durant won the MVP in 2014, and Westbrook would be labeled as one of the elite point guards in the league. But sadly, year after year, they just couldn't get over the hump to win a championship, something that they were fully capable of doing. But as we all know, a 3-1 lead would get blown and KD would move on to somewhere else. However, things would begin to look bright again, coming off of Russell Westbrook winning the MVP and adding Paul George and Carmelo Anthony to the mix. People for sure thought the Oklahoma City Thunder would be a threat in the playoffs, but once again, things would end the same by getting sent home prematurely. The New York Knicks. It's obvious that the NBA is extremely entertaining and fun to watch, but the thing that would help the NBA even more is if the New York Knicks were actually good again. Okay, don't get me wrong, they're not like horrible or anything like that, but they definitely are not living up to the Big Apple expectations. It still amazes me that the grand city of New York and the massive market they have can't seem to become relevant. Yeah, there has been some big names recently that's been in a Knicks uniform like Carmelo and Porzingis, but huge free agents are just not landing there like we would expect. We always believe that maybe it's their year to do big things, but for a long time now, that just doesn't happen. Personally, I would love to see some big time free agents team up with Porzingis and Kevin Knox, because the NBA would be so much more exciting with the Knicks being great again. The Minnesota Timberwolves. For a long time now, we've been saying that the Minnesota Timberwolves are the future, but yet they have failed to arrive. We're still waiting for Andrew Wiggins to take the big stride and become the player we all thought he would be. And Karl Anthony Towns is already one of the best centers in the NBA, along with Jimmy Butler being one of the elite two-way players today. So why are they still struggling to become that dangerous team that we were all waiting to see? Well, Jimmy Butler seems to have the answer for that by claiming that the rest of the team is soft, and they just don't have that dog in them. And I mean, we've all seen that Tom Thibodeau, Jimmy Butler, Taj Gibson, Derrick Rose movie before, and that clearly didn't work out. But let's just say what we always say, that maybe they can make a bigger impact this season, even though Jimmy Butler might not be around to come along for the ride. The Washington Wizards. We always hear that the Washington Wizards are gonna be the surprise team in the East heading into a season, but at the end of the day, they just end up looking average at best. With John Wall and Bradley Beal as one of the best backcourt duos in the league, you would think that they would at least make it to a conference finals one of these years, especially in the Eastern Conference, but seems to always have difficulty getting there. What makes this even funnier is that last year they claimed the Cleveland Cavaliers were scared of them and they didn't want to see them in the playoffs, but the Wizards can't even sniff the conference finals to back it up. The Memphis Grizzlies. You know how this story goes. They have a great start to the season, with everything looking bright ahead of them, but some sort of injury derails their hopes into the ground. To add on to that, the Memphis Grizzlies have had a unique style of play. It's very old school and physical, and with the game drastically changing today, you're just not going to survive with that type of play. I mean, they call it old school for a reason. And when they hired David Fizdale as their head coach, they really thought they had a legit chance to contend for a title, but it just didn't work out for them. But maybe their luck will turn around this year with everyone healthy. So there you have it, guys. Those were the teams that make a lot of noise with high hopes early in the season, but then eventually fizzle out when the playoffs arrive. I hope you enjoyed the video, and let me know if you're excited for this upcoming NBA season. I personally cannot wait to see all the interesting storylines this year. I know it's going to be awesome to watch. And if you're not already subscribed, make sure to subscribe right now, and don't forget to like the video. Thanks for watching.